Hello humans on the internet. I have drawn some pretty pictures for you to explain the mystical path. Basically I made all this up, so take it with a grain of salt, but mysticism is essentially the search for unity with the divine. Unity with God, oneness with the universe, connection with reality, enlightenment. There's different words for it and there's different religious backgrounds for it and whatnot, but it's essentially all the same thing. They're all doing the same thing and looking for the same thing. They're looking for oneness with everything. Oneness with God, oneness with the universe. Anyways, I've drawn some pretty pictures and I'll show you the stages on the mystical path. So stage one is essentially, this is maybe somebody who is like a narcissist or sociopathic or has an extremely low level of empathy. So there is me, it's very well defined, and there is not me. Not me is basically everything else. It's the universe, it's everything outside of you. And at this stage there's a very huge gap between me and not me. There's no real connection, there's no feeling of empathy. It is just you versus the world, and you're very self-absorbed and everything's about you, and you just want to attain more things for yourself, and you don't give a shit about anybody else or anything else. Compared to you, because there's such a big gap, everything that is not you, including other people, is an object. So people are objects to be used. They're pawns that you can move around on the chess field, chessboard, to get what you want. So that's stage one. This is the furthest away from kind of enlightenment or unity with the divine. Stage two is about where most people, I would say, are. This is when you've developed some empathy, some decent amount of empathy, and the gap between you and not you has become a lot smaller. And whatever's not you is starting to sort of bend around you. It's like the universe is folding around you a little bit as it comes closer. It's like everything starts to feel closer and not so distant, and empathy starts to happen. You start to feel a connection between you and not you. There's still a clear gap. You still might be at this stage you might be very materialistic still. You see the world kind of like an atheist does, like a Lego block universe. Everything is just material objects. It's all just made out of atoms, and there's nothing spiritual or sacred about it. It's kind of just a Lego block universe. And so you're still at this stage fairly self-centered, and you still see most things as objects without any kind of divinity or spiritual aspect or anything. But now you've developed empathy, so you start to see people and animals and sometimes even trees, sometimes even the planet, as something a little bit closer to you, something that you can empathize with, something that you don't want to destroy it necessarily. You don't want to harm other people, you don't want to harm other animals. You have empathy. You're still mostly self-centered and you care about you and building yourself up, materialistically, and gaining things and adding things to your ego. But you've got empathy. You feel a little bit closer to reality. There's no sacred or divine connection yet at this stage, but you've got some empathy. There's some love entering your life. You want closeness. You're starting to seek closeness with other people. You're starting to seek love. You're starting to seek unity in various ways, maybe with animals as well, with pets. You might love them. So you're starting to feel the universe getting a little bit closer, and you're seeking love, you're seeking connection, but you don't realize that there's anything spiritual or sacred yet at this stage. You might see the world from a very scientific or atheistic viewpoint. So stage 3 is kind of when you really start going on a spiritual journey. This is for someone who's not just religious on the surface, but deeply devout, or somebody who's on a real spiritual journey, if you're more into Eastern spirituality. So this is when the gap between you and the universe is starting to really become small, and you can really feel something is going on. You know, the universe isn't just Lego blocks anymore. It's not just dead, inert matter. There is something deeper going on. You feel drawn. You feel drawn by the universe. You feel drawn by God. You feel something's up. And you might not even be religious. You might just be sort of spiritual. Whatever, however you define that. But at this stage, something is really going on and you feel drawn. At this stage, you may be on a mystical path. You might be a spiritual seeker. You might go to India or look for a guru or look for a mystic, or you might be tempted to join some kind of convent or something, or become a hermit or a mystic of some kind if you're Christian. And at this stage, empathy is growing and love is growing to a large extent. At this stage, you feel really connected to things around you. You feel a lot of love. You feel drawn. And also, the universe starts bending around you and you start bending around the universe. So things are changing with you as well at this stage. I think there's some Christian mystic who had a quote, something to do with God coming closer to you and you coming closer to God, and God becoming more like you and you becoming more like God as you draw towards one another. So at this stage, people's lives will start to change. They start feeling more empathy, feeling more love. They start working on their vices. There's this real urge to get rid of selfishness, greed, lust, all the sins really. You start to feel that those things are real roadblocks to your own spiritual journey, and they don't feel like you anymore. So there's a pushing away or a pulling away from kind of worldly things and kind of, I guess, what you call sinful things. Things that are selfish, things that are me-oriented, things that are narcissistic, things that are egotistic. So you start changing, you start trying to, I guess, look more like God, look more like Jesus maybe, becoming more selfless, more caring, more kind, more compassionate, less addicted, less ego-driven. So this is somebody on the spiritual path. The next stage is when somebody gets a glimpse or an awakening experience. There's different words for it, but basically if you have a temporary experience of unity with the divine. So that's you there, and you are literally starting to connect. The bridge between you and reality has broken. The bubbles burst. And reality kind of wraps all around you. Reality, it starts to become very difficult to see where you are and reality is and where the gap is. And these experiences tend to be temporary. They last for half an hour or a minute or a second or an hour, but it's a unitive experience. It's an experience where you feel oneness with reality. That gap has closed and it's burst, and all of a sudden you have this immense experience of love and unity, where literally you become one with the universe. And they're extremely profound experiences. You can't really go back after one of these. It sort of changes you forever. So this is what the mystics are after. They're after these experiences. And eventually they're after it to become impermanent rather than just a once-off experience. But typically what happens is you experience this, it's very overwhelming, it blows your mind, and you realize, holy shit, this closeness that I've felt with reality, it's real. There's something real behind there. It's not just an idea in my head. There's something real and tangible to experience. I can truly kind of dissolve into oneness. I can dissolve into the universe. It's It's when you and the universe kind of dissolve into each other, or you and God dissolve into each other. And it's experienced as a sort of boundless love, a love that can't really be matched anywhere else in the world in any other way. There's nothing else. Even the best relationship doesn't compare. You experience this and you realize, okay, this is kind of it. This is kind of the goal of life. Then often what happens is you have that experience and then boop, it ends and you go back to where you were. It's a temporary experience, but it then changes you. It then shows you that what you're looking for, what you're drawn towards, is very much real. And it often is where the spiritual path really kicks into high gear. It's where you realize, we feel really driven to change yourself, to become more selfless, to become more loving, almost to become more like God, so that the barrier between you and God becomes thinner. And then that path happens for a while, and then eventually enlightenment happens. This is essentially unity with God, unity with the universe, oneness with reality, whatever you want to call it. But this is when that glimpse becomes permanent. The barrier, the line between you and not you completely dissolves. There is still some sort of concentration, some sort of individuality. There is still a physical body with physical needs, but the feeling of being in the body disappears, and the feeling of there being a line between you and not you disappears, and it disappears permanently. And therefore the natural state becomes love, because there's no line between you and not you anymore. So everything you look at is you, fundamentally. There's still some sort of individuality, so there's still some desire to look after the physical body and make sure, that it doesn't die. But other than that, there's not much selfishness anymore. There's no need to feed this, because this is that. So you don't need to get some of that and put it in there and add to yourself anymore, because you already are that. You sort of are everything, and at the same time you're nothing, because there's no separate you to point at and say, this is me, this is where I begin, this is where I end. So there is no you and there's no not you anymore. There's no the universe and there's no you outside of the universe. And that's kind of the final goal, I guess, for mysticism. It's for somebody to become enlightened, or to dissolve fully into everything that is not you.